Welcome to another episode of Sunrise Live, the podcast where we have freelance models going deep into conversation. I have Jessa Ray Muse on the other line. Hello, Jessa.
Hi, Christy.
You said you're out in Texas?
Yeah, I'm on a 9-day tour out here through Texas.
That's awesome. Are you doing Dallas, Austin, and Houston?
Yeah.
Right on. San
A
Antonio?
little bit of San Antonio, too.
Cool. For the purpose of the podcast, how about you introduce yourself and how you got started into freelance modeling, and then your progression and how that's led to where you are now?
Yeah, so I'm Jessa Ray Muse. I've been at this for about, I guess it's going to be 11 years in June. I started modeling in 2012 in Salt Lake City with a group called Sketch Cabaret. And so I'm a little background. I'm a performance artist. So I'm a hula hoop dancer, and I've done that as a professional street performer, so busker. And then I got in with the Burning Man community pretty much when I learned, like some of my teachers were in the Burning Man community in Salt Lake. And so I was intermixed in that performance group. And so in 2012, a bunch of my friends in that community joined Sketch Cabaret, and the hula hoop troupe I was a part of, which was like 8 of us, we all joined. And it started at a house, and we got too big too really quick, and so the neighbors hated us. And it was like a once a month thing, and so we quickly went to a club. So we started doing this, I think it was the third Friday of every month, and we would do, I think it was like 7 p.m. until like 1 a.m. or maybe 8, but whatever. And we would have 5 model stands. And this was all for artists, for sketch artists and painters at first. And we did have guys who were our staff photographers, and they wouldn't actually allow other photographers to come in and take photos, which was kind of nice because then we could control the quality of the content. Yeah, so we would have, a gesture stand where you're just doing 1 to 3 minute poses. We'd have a 5-minute stand or 5 to 10 minute, and then we would have, a 20-minute pose stand, and then several times we would have like a long pose stand where they would just adopt the same pose for 30 to 45-minute sessions. Wow. And then take breaks. So that was really fun because we'd have live performances happening. So I would perform sometimes with my hoops. We'd have a belly dancer. We had aerialists. We had bands that would come in, and that was just really awesome. And one downside was there was a lot of dubstep, and I was like, what does dubstep have to do with a cabaret? Yeah. And so we got paid a little bit at first for that, but then they realized that to keep it sustainable, that was on a volunteer basis for those, and that the way to make money was to do the drawing sessions for other companies. So to do outside work with, I worked with EA Games in Salt Lake City, and I worked with BU University, which is no longer a thing. And then I worked with Disney, and Disney didn't like nudes. They sourced all their artists from BYU, Brigham Young University, the Mormon university. And so if you did anything that was supposed to be like figure style drawing, then they would just have you wear a nude leotard. Okay. Which I never did a nude type session with them. But yeah, and so my very first nude session was with EA Games. It was a quick 1-hour thing. They did that every week, and they provided it as something for their artists to just keep up on their, proportionate body drawing skills, I guess. And it paid like $30 for an hour. And I was a little nervous because I just hadn't been nude in front of people like that before. And it was funny, actually. I was 19, 18. I think I was 18 still. And my mom, I didn't live with my parents, but I'd go visit my mom. So I talked to her quite a bit, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this nude session. And she was really, really open. My mom's always been really open with me through the years. But we laughed, and we're like, yeah, well, maybe a bush comes in handy here. It covers you up a little bit. So So yeah, I did that. But after the session, well, for one, and through the session, you learn poses that are really bad to hold, and then ones that are
Yeah.
really good. like, word to the wise: don't try to do a kneeling pose where you're up on your knees, not just sitting on your knees for more than like a 2-minute pose. Like that is a very strenuous pose. At the end, I saw the drawings and immediately wanted, pictures and wanted them to email me the photos because I was just like, oh wow, this is what I look like to other people. So for me, it was this moment of like, this is how other people see me. And these are maybe the ways that I don't see myself, see the beauty in myself, and I had quite a bit of self-esteem issues growing up. And, it's interesting to hear that from all kinds of models. It's like a lot of us are, really gorgeous, amazing people. And yet, no matter who you are, you're going to have self-esteem issues. So modeling helped me to like heal my own insecurities and belief systems about myself and start to work inward on self-love. So I really jumped headlong into figure modeling and did as many sessions as I could because especially the nude work, like the costumed work in the club was really fun because every month we would do a theme. So one time we did like an ocean theme, and one time we did the Island of Misfit Toys, and I did Raggedy Ann without my Andy, and I just I did a wild woman one time for one that was to do with like of the earth or something, so that was fun because you can channel different parts of yourself and different roles that you like to play. But the nude work is different because nude is, especially if you're up on the model stand, you're holding poses, you have no one to sit with but you. There's nothing to hide behind. There's no character that's covering you up. All the layers are shed, and you have to be alone with yourself and sort through in your mind maybe the bullshit that you've been telling yourself and start to work through that. And so that was kind of like in some ways more uncomfortable than the physical discomfort of holding a pose.
Yeah.
And yeah, I found that to be, I mean, it's always a constant process of healing. I wouldn't say that, I'm healed 100% or something, but it's been helpful. So I still do figure modeling when I'm home. In my hometown, there's a little drawing session, and I do it on tours even. And even though it doesn't pay as much, what I do is I just wait till the last minute if I have openings in my schedule, and then I'll fill it with drawing sessions to just keep up on that skill. I love it. On my next tour next month, I'm going DC, Virginia, North Carolina, back through DC, and I have 3 drawing sessions on that one. So
Cool. I've got a question. So, with the nude drawing sessions, you started doing that in Utah. Was there any pushback from like religious groups about any nude stuff beyond like Disney making people wear a bodysuit or whatever? Like, did you get flack from friends or family or acquaintances for doing nude figure work because of how Utah seems to be more culturally against like showing of the human body?
sure, yeah. So in that realm, I was born and raised LDS, so Mormon, and I stopped being active in the church maybe around age 16, but that was because of a lot of work I had done to look. Literally researched so many scripture and magic and religion, and was just like, you know what, this all disproves what you're trying to you like say. I can literally use your scriptures against you. You're all hypocrites.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. I okay. So in 2013 and 2014, so I had my first son at age 20 in 2014 in April, and from basically January through April of 2014, I did a bunch of drawing sessions and photo shoots like crazy. I mean, I did a ton of TF just for my maternity portfolio, but also to learn. It was really cool. And with that, I was posting those on Facebook at the time, and I was getting banned right and left for 30 days, getting put in Facebook jail. And and so I had to learn to censor, post implied, and stuff like that.
Oh
And
yeah.
way back then, so I've been a rebel against the system for a while. But anyways, yeah, it was so weird. I'd been posting those for months, and then I had my little boy April 6th, 2014, and we post this picture of me just like holding him against my breast and like this triumphant look, like I fucking did it. I'm a mess, but I'm powerful. It was a great picture. And I don't know if it was that picture that triggered it or what it was, but my aunt, so my mom's sister, who we were not friends with, and rest in peace now to her because she passed away last year. But
Oh.
she messaged my mom and just like bashed my mom and was just like, you've been such a bad example to your daughter to do with modesty, and like basically telling my mom that it's her fault that I'm an immodest little, I don't know what she was trying to say I was, but and we're just like, honestly, I'm the one who inspired my mom to do a nude photo shoot. Like, this is the opposite here, Aunt Marianne. It was like, that was kind of where I got pushback, honestly, was just that, because otherwise Salt Lake City is very progressive, even though it's the Mormon capital and there is a large population of Mormons. There's a ridiculously huge gay pride scene. And I mean,
Oh.
yeah, it's really fun. I've been in the parade multiple times with my hula hoops. So I don't actually have a lot of negative experiences associated with my modeling. I'm really fortunate, really kind of like, two hands full, maybe like I could count it on two hands. Yeah, and so that was frustrating though. Just that she has been so oppressed by this system that she needs to tell other women what to do with their bodies,
Yeah.
like it's hurting her somehow. And so, we just blocked her. I mean, I was like, I don't need this. My body is beautiful and amazing and powerful. And like, look what I just did. And yeah, I just moved on from there. I didn't let it phase me too much.
That's good. Did you say that you inspired your mom to pose nude also?
Yeah, yeah. So my mom has done a couple photo shoots. She did a session with a female photographer friend of ours. I think it was like in the late summer of 2013, and did some shots. And I mean, my mom's had 6 kids. She has been overweight. So she has stretch marks. Her boobs are a little saggy, and she's got like a tummy that she doesn't super love. But it helped her when she saw the photos. She was, yeah, of course, there's photos that you don't like from every photo shoot, but
Yeah.
she was able to find the ones she really loved, and it was really empowering for her. And I thought that was awesome that I had actually helped my mom with encouraging her to do that, and
That's cool.
yeah, my mom and I are super close. In fact, it's funny. I can text a photo to my husband and he'll be like, "Pretty," or "Cool." And very rarely he'll be like, "Oh, I love the shape of the legs," or get into the what he likes about it. But my mom will send me like 3 sentences about what she likes, and so she's really fun to bounce stuff off of.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And my dad, he's known since the beginning I've done nude modeling, but he doesn't want to see. That's just kind of where we're at, and he doesn't judge me at all for it. He's Yeah, I will occasionally be like, "Okay, Dad, this one's just implied. Look at this one. You got to see."
Well, that's nice that he's not judgmental about it on you, so that's super positive.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. And like, to kind of continue on that story, so after I had my son, I because of my diet and my age and lifestyle with hula hooping, I bounced back. Like, I started hula hooping again. I mean, I was a single mom at the time. I was living with my family when I had my son. So I had to go back to work pretty quick. But I was hula hooping again by the time I was like a month postpartum. So
Wow.
and my body, I think by the time I was like 6 weeks or 8 weeks postpartum, my stomach was already shrunk back flat, like almost all the way. And I mean, I've always been like an A cup, like a small breasted woman, but I had like really good C's and was like rocking this body. And I was like, damn, if only I could have frozen those breastfeeding C's, I think sometimes.
Right
But
on.
it's always like easy to get into comparison, and I have to check myself about it practically every day, and then just go, you know what? I had 2 babies. I have 2 sons now, and I breastfed both of them for 2.5 years, and I don't have saggy tits. I have nice firm A's. and they're bigger than they were before I had kids. So that's great.
That's pretty good. That's a good deal. I'd say a lot of people's probably do sag out afterwards.
Yeah.
So you had all the experience with the hooping and the drawing sessions, and you did a lot of photography through the your process of the maternity shoots, and then what happened after that with your career?
Yeah, so honestly, after that, pretty much went headlong into modeling that summer. I started doing nude in nature. That's when the nude in nature really happened, was in the summer of 2014. And I work with this guy that, and this kind of actually starts to go into the awkward photographer thing. So I worked with this guy in Utah. I won't say his name. He's passed away now. I mean, I guess because he's passed away, I could say his name. I'm curious who else actually worked with him. So I am actually going to say his name is Mitch Adamson, and he was in Salt Lake, Utah, and he I was in this group called After Dark or something, Art Modeling After Dark on Facebook. So we at the time you could post uncensored nudes in private groups on Facebook.
Yeah.
And so we were posting photos in there, and he put up like a casting for wanting to do foxen photo shoots, he called it. And what he would do is he would glue this foxtail just above your bum, and which in my opinion is better than the butt plug thing, but that was just my preference. It makes sense. But yeah, so I was like, yeah, that looks like fun. I'll do a foxen photo shoot. And actually the first time I worked with him, I took my cousin because she also wanted to do it, and so we like buddied up and did, she was like my chaperone model buddy. And yeah, I ended up working with him a bunch. So, but okay, I didn't know better at the time. So he did this thing where he would say, you have to do an overnight trip with him, you have to do a cold shoot, and you have to get painted to get paid. Okay. So, and he paid like shit. He paid like 15 an hour. And I didn't
Wait,
know better.
so you had to
Yeah.
do an overnight with him, and you had to do something involving you getting really cold? This sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah,
Personally.
yeah. I mean, like, I honestly never had bad experiences with him, and I later found out tons of other people did. And I think maybe part of why I didn't have a lot of bad experiences with really any photographers. I mean, I have had a few now, but it's about communication and the fact that I don't get inebriated on shoots, and that I'm very clear with who I am, and I'm vigilant, and it just doesn't allow a lot of room for error. But still, yeah, so I did the Foxen shoe, and then I did several of the Foxen. I actually ended up modeling with my husband when we were just first dating for a shoot where my sister modeled with him, my cousin, the same cousin, and me, and then my husband joined us for that shoot. And it was funny because on the sidelines, my sister and my cousin are like, "He has better butt than you." Like, um, but yeah, I worked with him for a while, and um, then I ended up doing some other shoots. Okay, and this guy I worked with, he goes by photography.
Yeah,
Um,
I know him.
like he takes good photos, but in the beginning, I will say that, and I honestly don't care if he hears this. He knows my feedback, so whatever. But we did a shoot. My sister and my cousin and we did a shoot with him one day along the river where we lived in Ogden, Utah, and it was honestly an okay spot. I was very new to scouting locations, so I was like, he's like, where a good place is to shoot? Yeah, let's go by the river. So we go shoot by this river. It's okay. So this other girl that's with us is shooting with him, and we went down into the river, and we're just hanging in the river, and we're like, wouldn't it be funny if a fly fisherman walks by right now? And I swear we summoned the fly fisherman. Like, no, here he comes,
Oh
walking
my
up the
god.
river. And he didn't even notice us until we say hi. And then he's like, oh, wow. And we're like, we hope you don't mind. He's like, no, it adds to the beauty, blah, blah, blah. And just keeps walking, doesn't even look back. He was super respectful. And anyway, so in that shoot, we did some shots right there by the river, kind of, sirens in the river thing with the three of us. And he was like really heavy handed at editing at the time. It's just like really bad. Like my sister was quite skinny already, like plenty, like she didn't need liquefy is the point, and he edited her wrist all weird to where it looked like all bent and broken. And her ribs, the way he did use the contrast, it made her look really, really skinny. Like it made her ribs really pop out. And we were like, hey, we don't like this, you know, and also he made her hair yellow. So it was like multiple issues because she's blonde. And then he wouldn't edit any photos of my cousin because she was rocking her leg hair at the time and she has dark hair. And so he wouldn't, I mean, she didn't even want them edited. He could have just sent them all to her and she would have used them whatever way she wanted. But anyway, so all of that's fine, whatever. That's just all bitching about him. But then, but then the issue was later, okay, he knows I'm seeing somebody. I had talked about that I'd seen somebody. He sends me a message with a photo. It's really pretty. I honestly should put it on my website. But he tells me I have a nice camel toe.
What?
And I'm like, this is how you tell a girl she has a pretty pussy? Like, I don't. I would have rather you said pussy. Like, honestly. So I just was like quiet. I didn't say anything in the message, you know. I was like awkward. And just like, I don't know what you were thinking. I know you were maybe trying to be tender around the subject, but you chose the wrong word, bro.
So, I mean, the focus of the images, was it like on your
No.
pussy, or okay? So it doesn't really make sense that he would be complimenting it, other than to try and like make a comment specifically about your crotch.
Yeah.
Okay, that's so
Yeah.
weird.
That was it. And I was just like, oh, bad move, bro. I don't know. It was just, maybe he zoomed in while he was editing, or maybe he was looking when I wasn't paying attention during the shoot. I don't freaking know. But
I feel like they all zoom in, whether they admit to it or not. I'm sure every photographer zooms in on.
shit, sometimes I'll zoom in. I'll be like, is that lingerie really like covering her enough? That looks tiny.
Yeah, no, I zoom in too, but yeah. He zoomed in enough to feel the need to make a comment about how he felt about your camel toe.
Yeah.
That is so awkward. Why?
Yeah. So, anyways, that was definitely one of my awkward photographer moments. And like I said, I haven't really had a lot. I hear these stories about what other models have dealt with, and I don't have a lot of these issues. But it was actually because I only modeled part-time for years, like, and I still did my hula hoop business, and I was a mom, and you know, I just so I didn't I even though I did a lot of photo shoots. I mean, I've done so many, I can't count. I have no idea, you know, but still it was just like, I think maybe just working locally helped me. Yeah, and then I guess if we go, so yeah, I lived in Utah all the way until 2015, and then I moved away to Colorado. And then so that's where I've lived for the last 8 years, is here in Western Colorado. And I say here, I'm not home now, but you know, whatever. Yeah, and so I did shoots locally around where I live, and went to Denver on mini tours. And so I would basically just go to mini tours to Salt Lake and Denver for a long time, because that was easy, being a part-time model and mommy, and working other jobs part-time sometimes, but you know, working for myself with hula hoops. And for so long I held on to the hula hoop business like it was the thing. I couldn't ever stop doing it. And then it just like in the last when I jumped full force into full-time modeling in August 2021, I basically just retired from hula hoops. I I I don't actually feel like I thought I would about it. I do occasionally miss it, but really I just do hula hoops for photo shoots now. And that's about it. But I used to literally do a Saturday, Sunday farmers market and street market every single weekend, all summer long. I would hula hoop for like 7 hours all day long. So I'd literally be living off of smoothies and hors d'oeuvres all day. And then just, and I'd make 40 hula hoops a week. So yeah. But
Do you feel like that's a past era of your life that you sort of, it was a good time, but it was in the past, like a different Jessa?
yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's where I'm at with it at this point. I mean, people in my town will be like, "Oh, are we gonna see you hula hooping at Cherry Days? It's our 4th of July event," and I'm like, "No, I'm retired. I don't like to work holidays anymore. I mean, I worked every holiday, it felt like, with the hula hoops for so long. Being in the, you know, it's like you're still in the service industry in that way because you're providing an entertainment service. And so it's just so nice. I mean, I could go camping for the 4th of July now, which I much prefer actually.
Yeah. So you said you went full time in August of 2021, so that was about a year and a half ago or so?
Yeah, yeah. So it's basically, coming up on 2 years, but like, so to rewind a little bit, in 2019, I went to Europe with this guy who I've actually later learned is like blacklisted in Belgium. And I got like an all expenses paid trip to London, and then he ended up paying for my whole family to go to Budapest, and that was cool. So I got to experience a little bit different side about what it takes to model really far away, and I was gonna start touring that fall, and something stopped me, and which is really great, of course, because then the next year is COVID, and so I'm really fortunate that I didn't jump headlong into it in a way. And sometimes I go, gosh, I wish I had jumped into full time modeling a long time ago. But at the same time, I feel like maybe that getting into the full time modeling later in my modeling career, and as I got older and my kids were older, then I could have other people help tend them, and that I had more experience under my belt in other aspects of modeling that helped me to avoid issues, and also just little things like how to model outside and how to take really good care of yourself in the day when you're modeling. Like, if I have 3 2-hour photo shoots in a day, you know I will like start my day with a smoothie and tea, and then I'll pack a little lunch bag everywhere I go. I show up to the photo shoot with my rolly bag of all my stuff and my lunch bag and my yoga mat too, and I will bring like protein bars with me. I'll bring fruit, and sometimes I'll bring my little tiffin container with multiple compartments with raw veggies and dip and salt. And part of why I do that is because, raw fruit and vegetables are not going to bloat you in a photo shoot, but you're going to keep your blood sugar up and your energy levels, and be good, taking good care of yourself. It's really important to me to take good care of myself and maintain long-term beauty, not just in the moment of being skinny because I haven't eaten all day,
Yeah,
And
totally.
yeah, so all that stuff I already had learned pretty much from hula hooping. So there's a lot of stuff that actually kind of transfers over, because I would, have to eat while driving sometimes going to hula hoop gigs. Yeah, so that just lends itself to it. But anyway, photographer fail. All right, so if we go like into the real photographer fail.
Yes, tell me the photographer fail story.
So you've heard this story recently, but I'm going to put it on here. I'm just going to say very vaguely Pacific Northwest, okay?
Okay.
Um, I was working with this guy, and I used to have on my Model Mayhem profile that I would do artistic labia work for the right project, and because I've done labia casting and certain things, and that I didn't really do open leg modeling. Well, just the fact of having that on your profile will attract people to you that think they can like finagle their way around
Yeah.
that. So that is no longer on my profile. I say no open leg. I mean, literally, an open leg shot might be like a 1 out of 1,000 in a photo shoot. That's like, hey, there's a hollow on this tree. It looks like a labia. Come take this picture. And they will be totally caught off guard. And I'll be like, yeah, it's my idea. And it's because I feel safe with them in that moment. And it's done organically. It's not just, yeah. I mean, he hits me up about wanting to do work for, the Seattle Erotic Arts
Oh
Festival. I
God.
submit it. And I'm like, sounds cool. I didn't know shit about it. And and erotic art, sweet. Let's make art out of it. No smut. And so I am like, we moved from Model Mayhem to email because you can't send pictures through there. And so I'm like, yeah, send me examples. So he sends me a bunch of examples, and my rules when I do anything like that is no eye contact with the camera with my legs open, and no hands down below at all in any capacity. And so I ended up being like, yes to this, no to this, yes to this, no to this, so that he could understand my boundary. So I thought that was very clear. And then during that first photo shoot, everything was good until the end. So we're doing the photo shoot. We end up doing like very nice art nudes, some positions where I am just more posed open. But it just wasn't quite what I had thought we were going to do. So there was some hesitancy in my mind, and there was starting to be like a little bit of intuition of like, through the shoot. Well, then in the end, he wanted to take an up close video of me just rubbing the surrounding area, but not actually rubbing or touching myself. And I was like, and I got coerced into doing it actually, because I was already in a gratuitous position basically. And then after the fact, I told him, I was like, I actually wasn't comfortable with what we did there. I don't want you to use that video. And, he was grumpy about it. And at the time, I did the photo shoot for my normal rate. And I didn't realize that I needed to do it for a higher rate. And honestly, like, that might sound just minor to some people that maybe do open leg or whatever, but from my experience, I honestly kind of stored it as trauma and didn't talk about it that much and felt guilty that I had allowed it to happen, stuff like that. And so then fast forward to last year, I ended up scheduling with him again for some reason. And I thought, well, we'd already talked about my boundaries in the past. He knows what my rules are. So I didn't think to reiterate my rules. And I get to the shoot, and he immediately, we're not even doing anything art nude. He immediately wants me like slid to the edge of the couch, but, pelvis tilted outward, not, back, like legs open, but not even just legs open, like one leg up on the arm of the couch, like by my ear. And I'm like, oh, fuck. And so I'm immediately like, that's more than what I usually do for open leg. I told him that's going to cost more. Instead of just being like, I'm not going to do that, I was just like, that's going to cost more. And he's like, oh, okay, well, we'll do an hour of this and an hour of that. So then he wants to like try to separate. And I'm
Yeah,
like, oh,
right.
God. And no, the whole shoot, he wanted the whole thing all out there. And so I was so like, but then it gets worse, okay? And then he asks me, because no hands down below. That was my rule, right? And he goes, lift the hood at one point, and I knew exactly what he wanted, but I hesitate a little bit, and I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, lift the hood of the clit, and I'm like the tiniest, teeniest clit, like, oh, lift the hood. You're gonna have to zoom in with a macro, bro, like.
Lift the hood. That's so weird.
But I was, that's what I'm thinking. I was like, no hands down below, remember? That's my rule. And that was where I had to start saying no. That was where I was like, oh, fuck, this guy. So maybe only like 30 minutes pass in the photo shoot, and he says it again. Same thing. Lift the hood. And I was like,
didn't we just have that conversation?
No, I'm not going to do that. I already told you that, exactly. And I was like pissed and uncomfortable at that point. And like, this guy's pushing my boundaries. And, so I continued posing a little bit, very gratuitously, something I don't do for anybody, never going to fucking do again. I was just like, wow, why did I get coaxed into this? I just don't feel comfortable. And so at the end of he ends up ending the shoot like a half hour early, because he knows he's not getting what he wants. And he's not going to get anywhere with me and further than he did. And so we end the shoot. Well, the other issue is that he'd given me a ride from the airport. So I'm at this dude's like whim to an extent. I mean, I could have called it Uber, but and so he's giving me a ride back. And on the way back, I explained to him, like, if, and honestly, I'm never going to work with him again. But I did explain to him, like, if we do this again in the future, the whole photo shoot has to be this rate, no matter if it's only 20 minutes of this amount of content. And explain to him the difference between what I had like agreed to and what he was trying to get me to do. And it's so weird, like how in the moment when you're very vulnerable, they change, and then they are like all sweet to your face and like in messaging, and they look like they're this sweet old guy, but they're really not. They're this old fucking perv.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I
Yeah.
I've been tricked in the same way, and I think the worst thing is that when you feel like you can trust somebody, and then later you find out that your intuition was wrong because you want to trust your intuition and be like, "Oh yeah, my spider senses didn't raise any red flags," and then later they kind of stab you in the back by crossing your boundaries, and that guy repeatedly crossed your boundaries.
Yeah.
So that sucks. I think I remember who you're talking about, and yeah, I've worked with him too, and I had the same feeling the last time I worked with him. I was like, why am I here? Like this guy, like they want to get a rate for your artistic nude. They're like, oh yeah, what we're gonna shoot is, up to your artistic nude boundary. And then when you get there and you're posing, they're directing you into poses that are beyond what that scope of artistic covers.
Yeah. 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 So, I just was like in hindsight, like, wow, it's just so important. Even if you work with somebody 10 times to just be very clear, this is my current boundary, this is my rule, here's a photo example, blah blah blah. But even then, it's just like it's really hard to control that with the people that want to shoot erotic and explicit, I feel like. And so I actually, kind of respect that you say that you really just only do that if you feel like it for your own OnlyFans, and you do it, yourself. And then you can be in control of that. That seems like the way to do it.
Yeah, and I can do that now because I get more income from my online sources than I do from in-person photo shoots. It might be close to 50-50, but I think it's a little bit more on the OnlyFans and Patreon is more of my income. But when I was touring, like what you're doing, you're trying to get as many bookings as you can. And if somebody over communication is like talking about what your boundaries are and what your rates are, and it sounds like everything's going to be consensual and fine. Then back when I was making a majority of my income through touring shoots, I would let a lot of those bookings like happen, even though if I was like, this guy's going to be a little bit weird, but I'm sure he's fine, and a lot of them are just fine. It's like they're not going to, physically assault or kidnap you, but they're going to make you feel kind of dirty or taken advantage of through coercing you a little bit past your boundaries, or hiring you for artistic and then coercing you into erotic, and then like what that guy did to you, saying, oh well, I'll just hire you for 1 hour of erotic and 1 hour of artistic, trying to like bargain with you at the shoot when you've already prearranged an agreement for what you were going to do, and then changing it in the moment just makes the shoot a more of an awkward, not creative, not positive feeling for the model. Like, oh, I'm just here because you wanted to see how much you could squeeze out of me for the cheapest amount. Like, that's the worst.
Yeah, exactly. And at the time my first photo shoot happened with him, I was charging 125 still. And I did something weird actually. At the time I had transitioned to doing like an hour for 150, which I really don't ever do an hour, but I was like, okay, if occasionally somebody wants an hour, I'll do 150, and then if they want 2 hours, I'll do 275. So I ended up doing 3 hours with him for 400 the first time. But then the next time I was just, yeah, like he did know that my rate had changed to 150, but then it was like he was trying to, yeah, do all that for still the art nude rate. And I'm like, no, no, this needs to be under even more than my fetish rate, because I have a $200 fetish rate now. And that's really honestly just for shibari cuffs. If I look like I'm in a submissive position, that's not even open leg. That's literally just, if you're gonna sell feet pictures or this is personal spank bank, you're paying me more.
Yeah.
Like, and I feel comfortable doing that. And then I, but also, especially if I do shibari suspension, which I very rarely do, but if it's very pretty and artistic, I want to. And so I'll charge more for that. Because you'll get marked up. My skin's really sensitive, and that can interfere with being able to do other shoots in a tour. And so I try to schedule a shoot like that at the very end of a tour, or I mean, because I'll be marked up for a whole week, so it has to be at the end, because otherwise they have a bunch of Photoshop work to do, and nobody wants to do that.
Yeah. So you've mentioned a few times in this podcast that you had been working with photographers that you felt comfortable with and later found out they were blacklisted. How did you find out about them being blacklisted and then how did you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, when I think what it is that I didn't really understand all the resources for being able to verify people that I have access to now. And so I really just went off of like Model Mayhem credits, but I've since learned more. There's so much more than that. I mean, not only, even if somebody has 100 Model Mayhem credits, you should still reach out to three of them at the minimum. And because there might be something they didn't say in their credit,
Yeah.
um, and especially the people that left a credit that's blank, you know,
Yeah.
because I started doing a thing where, yeah, I'll leave a blank credit if I don't have anything good to say. I have plenty to say. So if I don't leave anything, it's actually because I have something bad to say. And um, that's a way to just like hopefully alert people that they should reach out to me for more. Obviously, that's not like a clear code, but I did have a couple other models tell me that that's what they do is they'll leave a blank credit. But
Yeah.
yeah, and so besides that though, it's just yeah, I just I didn't know how to fully reference people, and so even though I feel like my referencing system is really thorough, it still is like people slip through the cracks, and like when I found out about Mitch, I was like, wow, it was one of those times where I'm like, disclaimer, I had a good experience, but that doesn't discount other people's bad experience. In fact, their experiences, of course, discounts mine. It's more important, and I've had that happen with a couple people where I've had a fine time, worked with them extensively, not just once or twice sometimes.
Yeah.
And then ended up where somewhere through the grapevine I find out that they're blacklisted for a serious reason, and I'm just lucky that I haven't had a problem. And so it's frustrating because not only can your credit on their Model Mayhem help them get work with other models, but just your presence in their portfolio.
Yeah.
And that's why with my verification system, in fact, I think this is something I'm happy to talk about, is just that like say somebody hits me up on Instagram. Okay, do they have a link to their work elsewhere, for one, and then what's the quality of their work, and then do I want to even be portrayed in that quality, and then do I recognize anybody in the port? Okay, and then I'll find out if they have Model Mayhem. I'll go check out their Model Mayhem if they do. If they don't, then I will. Either way, I'll generally. It takes a lot of time, honestly, but I'll reach out to other models that they worked with and ask, "Hey, I saw you worked with this person. Send the link. How was your experience?" Um, and then that way they have a moment to tell me, "Oh yeah, he's like autistic and but he's fine. He's totally fine. He's just whatever, but something that maybe you don't want to put on their profile, but or they can say, oh yeah, he totally tried to touch me or whatever, and then I don't know, maybe I think I worry sometimes that I'm like being too annoying with the amount of messages I will send out for verification, but I feel like every time I hear a bad story about another model's had, I'm just like, oh, I'm justified, that's why I do that,
Yeah.
and I do that with Model Mayhem, with Instagram, with whatever way somebody reaches out to me. I will verify them and I'll mark it in the contact info I save in my directory, verified by, reference by. If I just like recognize somebody in their port, but I didn't reach out to them directly, I will put their name sometimes in the referenced area, but I'll put a question mark behind it. So I know when I go back to it, I need to reach out to those people. So I have this whole system of how I do that, and it helps prevent issues. But yeah, in the beginning, I just really was like, oh, I saw you worked with this person, how was it? And maybe like only one person I had reached out to, and I had heard rumors about Mitch a couple times, but it was like a photographer bashing him for the quality of his work because he just uses whatever was out of camera and never would edit anything. And so
Right.
that just seemed like petty drama. It didn't seem like an issue, but yeah, I just have later learned so much about him and been like, wow, I guess I'm really lucky. But
Yeah. I've had experiences that are kind of similar with different photographers from my hometown. And I wanted to just clarify because you're talking a lot about Model Mayhem verified credits and then what comments the models put in there. For people who aren't familiar to Model Mayhem who might be listening to this, it's a portfolio hosting site. You can like leave basically a review when the other creator tags you in a photo. And Model Mayhem has a policy where you can't say something negative on those comments or verified credits on people's pages. You can't say anything negative in comments on photos, on their profile. The only place that you can say anything indicating that they're potentially like not good to work with is in the text of your biography on your profile. You're only allowed to say I do not recommend working with so and so, and you can put a link to their page or their name or whatever, but you can't put it in the verified credit information or in a comment on their page. It's kind of crap. I understand why they have that rule because they don't want Model Mayhem to be like a drama fest, but it makes it kind of hard to like if I get a verified credit request from a photographer that I'm not sure I liked working with, I just ignore it. I don't accept the tag. I've had similar experiences where I had worked with people when I was newer to modeling tons of times, and I might have heard a little rumor about them here or there, but didn't really get the full story or learn about the actual super fucked up stuff until way later in my career, and then finding out that these people are totally blacklisted and professional models won't work with them, and that I had worked with them a ton when I was just a local model. And then I'm like, oh crap, I'm like in their portfolio a bunch, so it makes me feel like stupid.
but honestly, it's just it happens. It happens to all of us, I feel like, and it's just one of those things, and we can only do our best to just disclaimer like, hey, that was my experience, but I've like heard things, and each situation. I feel like some models, they just automatically know they're not going to get anywhere with us, and then other people somehow just end up with issues that happen that are just a fluke, or just something happens where then they think, oh, I can take advantage of you, you're an easy target.
Yeah. And unfortunately, a lot of those easy targets are the newer, younger models. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it happens. It is unfortunate. There's a few like Keystone Predators from Seattle that run studio events, and I won't mention their names, but my people back in Seattle probably know who I'm talking about. There's two key workshops that are like glamour workshops, and both of them are run by predators. And there's still people that work at their studios regularly, and this information has been public knowledge. So,
There's a couple of people like that actually, that in fact it's come up a couple times, I've noticed in like comments on your side in the podcast, and about this workshop runner in California that we've both worked with, that he continually allows this one specific blacklisted photographer to
oh my
attend his
god,
events.
yeah.
And this guy is like, I mean, he's like blacklisted to the max, like, I mean,
Yeah.
just, and it's so like everybody knows, but it's because he's good for the money that some people in the community continue to allow him to attend their events. And it's not fucking cool, because then you look like a creep, you're a predator endorser, and then it's like you're allowing opportunities for unsuspecting models to work with that person one-on-one, and then have an actual issue. Like, they might not have an issue in the workshop, but they will
Mm-hmm.
later.
And actually, I've been that event organizer back in the day, and so I have the experience of feeling the guilt of organizing an event where a photographer I did not know at the time was predatory met a newbie model at my, newbie model TFP group shoot back in like 2014 or whatever. And on a separate date, this pair of photographers who met this model at my event invited her to work with them one on one at their place and allegedly kidnapped and raped her. And there's a police report with their
Whoa.
mugshots. Those two photographers, Seattle community is very aware of it. And because of that incident, I stopped hosting group events. I felt such extreme guilt. And I know that there are ways around. It's like you can vet people all you want, but if you trust them and then people that you trusted stabbed you in the back, it 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 made me not trust my own ability to run those events because I didn't want to have those things happen as a result of people meeting at my events. And so that one guy at that one Sacramento workshop that I know who it is that you're talking about, he doesn't give a shit. He just wants the money. He doesn't even rent a studio. He uses his garage and he doesn't have air conditioning. And you're
Oh my
suffering
God.
and sweating in like 100 degrees for like 7 hours. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, for real. I
The
mean, he
worst.
literally booked me for a half day rate for the workshop, which right now I don't give any workshops any cuts on my rate. Like with a one-on-one shoot, yeah, I'll give you a 550 for a half day. But if it's a 4-hour workshop and I know you're making money on the top, I do my flat rate of 150 an hour, no matter how many hours it is, because
That's
I'm working
good.
my ass off. But it's like he booked me for that 4-hour time slot, but then it was like and then he booked a 1-hour solo on top of it, actually, in advance of the workshop. So I did an hour with him, and then we had a half-hour break, and then I did a 2-hour workshop, and then I had a half-hour break, and then I did 2 hours again. And it's like the only pictures I feel like that look good are from the 1 hour in advance, because then it got super hot. It was like 106 degrees in Sacramento that day.
Oh my
And
God.
then I'm in a garage, which is probably hotter.
Yeah, no
And
air conditioning.
sweltering hot, and I was like, can we leave the door of the house open so that the AC can come in? And he's like, well, then my house is going to get hot. I'm like,
Nobody's in the house. We're all suffering in here.
and they're trying to like get me to do an ice cube on the nipple thing. And it was so hot. The ice cube was melting within like 30 seconds, and my nipple wouldn't even get hard. It was
Oh
so
my God.
like,
That sucks.
yeah, but it's just like with that there, and I've then since, and actually that guy, what we were talking about from the workshop, so he gives me his business card. He attended both sessions. He gives me his business card, tells me that he wants to work one-on-one, hire me for a whole day. Can I come back to where he lives? And I was like, no, I'm headed west. Like I've done my tour. I didn't go to the Bay this trip. If I go back to where you're at, I need to charge you a travel fee, because at the time gas in California last summer was like $6.50 a gallon. And I'm like, not only do I have to charge you my day rate, but I have to charge you a gas fee on top of it. And he didn't want to pay my whole fee. He didn't
I'm
want to
sure
pay
he
my
didn't.
travel fee. He didn't want to pay none of that. Then I used the line, dude, I do this full time. I'm the sole provider of my family. Doesn't matter. I don't have to justify, but sometimes with some people, I feel like I need to just be straight
Oh
up.
my
This is
God.
my life, and so it didn't work out. And actually, he showed me his car. On his card is a photo of a model friend of mine in Colorado, and it's like, oh yeah, Chelsea, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna contact Chelsea is what I'm thinking, and I did, and she told me some stuff about him already before I even got on the phone call to negotiate the day shoot. And so I already was warned a little bit about him, but then I've since learned a ton more. I mean, I was just like, oh my God, I'm glad I dodged a bullet with that one. So,
For
there's some
real.
people you just end up with close calls with, but I'm really happy I haven't worked with them. But
Yeah, but he has your photo from the workshop, which is unfortunate. The same exact thing happened to me. I think I worked there like a week or two before you went there, actually.
yeah,
Anyway,
I know.
it sucks. You
I
can't
blocked
just dodge
him,
them all.
but it's just like, yeah, then I'm not tagged in it, which is a red flag, because if you go through someone's portfolio and models are not tagged, that for me is like, well, either that model doesn't want to be tagged because they don't like the photo, or for me it's a red flag of actual like disrespect, even of like that you don't respect the people you're making art with, to the point that, yeah, you're not going to leave them a credit on Model Mayhem, you're not going to tag them in the photos. Like,
Yeah.
even if I get paid or I pay somebody to make photos, I don't give a crap. I am going to post that, this
Yeah.
was taken by this photographer, tag their name, because
For
I want
real.
everybody to get more work. I'm a community minded person, and I want everybody to succeed.
Yeah, and it looks unprofessional if you're not crediting the photographer, and it makes other photographers not want to work with you if you don't credit other photographers. Like they see that.
Yeah, for sure. So,
Um,
there's not much more I can do about the fact that he has photos of me, but
yeah, same. What can you do? But beyond just posting vaguely, just because I've worked with somebody doesn't mean that I had a good experience with them and I endorse them. Please contact me if you have questions about anybody who has images of me up.
exactly, 100%.
I'm going to reroute really quick. I wanted to ask you, this is the rising phoenix moment in your life. Can you describe a situation in your life that you felt that you were faced with a challenge that you had to overcome?
Yeah, yeah, sure. In fact, I think I've told you this story too. I'm going to keep it kind of short. As I said, I've been modeling for almost 11 years, but I've only been full-time touring since August of 2021. And so when I got into touring full-time, I was a noob on the travel modeling scene. And even though I wasn't a newbie model, I was a noob in that way. And I'm just like, if I see somebody's work, it inspires me. I want to do a duo. I want to model together. I want to model for that photographer. That's how I am. And, it's a compliment. And it's like, it's nothing to do with if you have 100,000 followers or if you have 10 followers. And so I got what I call it, I was an overeager collaborator, okay? And I reached out to too many people wanting to collaborate. And I didn't, pussyfoot around like, hey, I like your portfolio in this way. If our paths ever cross and a photographer wants to hire us, I'd love to collaborate with you. I didn't think about doing the same thing I do with photographers, with models. I was just like, hey, I love your work. I'd love to work together sometime. And apparently that's not enough, or I don't know, but anyway, I got in trouble with having done that, and I guess I was being talked about in some groups that I was like somebody trying to like ride on the coattails of other models with followings, and which was not my intention at all. For disclaimer for anybody listening that knows about this about me, and I apologize honestly for giving that wrong impression. And I have, it really was crushing to learn that I had done that and like stepped on toes that I didn't even realize I had done. Because and so then it was like, god, are these models that are like not liking me or potentially blocking me gonna have some sway over my ability to get work? I thought for a minute, and I kind of had a slightly depressing winter after that occurred. And then I came out of it, I rose from the ashes in a way, and I just kept doing my thing. I do me and you do you. And I realized that there's always going to be drama, and there is competition, and but for me, I see it as a community, and that's who I am. And if people don't see me like that, I'm sorry that you didn't perceive me as in the right light, but that's who I am. And so it just became like, I realized that if a photographer is going to hire you, they're going to hire you because your work speaks to them, because your communication spoke to them, and it really doesn't have much to do with if other models don't like you. And so I've realized that that part of it doesn't matter. I still am bummed that that occurred, and there are some people that I would love to make up with and at least clarify whether or not I'm going to work with them ever. It doesn't matter, because I understand that it is rare when you're going to do a duo with somebody, and you know, and that's fine. I wasn't like trying to force duos by any means, but it was just like, yeah, I have, oftentimes I can just see a vision of two people in a certain way, and so like that's how I work creatively. And so so rising from the ashes is like, well, since then, in fact, in especially March of last year, I was able to make some like fast model friends, like who I feel like I'm really close with. We're not just acquaintances, and and I feel like I've really developed some good friendships, not only with models but with photographers in the community. And I mean, not that credits should matter, but I have like almost 140 credits on Model Mayhem, and like my work, I have such a wide variety. So it's just like my work speaks for itself. My personality speaks for itself. If you've met me in person and you know who I am, then you know just how I work, and that I'm moving out of that, I think. And if there's any taint in the community still, oh well. Like, I'm just not gonna let it phase me. And even along those lines, part of what happened is I wanted to be a part of some events that were going on out there, and maybe some of those events know about that, or there was something else that they just already have plenty of models, applying to them. And I really appreciate it when you reach out to a photographer or to an event and say, hey, I'd like to, model for you sometime. Here's an example of my portfolio, blah, blah, blah. Let me know if you'd like to work together. If not, I use this line. If not, thanks for your time and consideration. I look forward to hearing back, because I want people to know that they can tell me no and I can take it. And that I would rather hear something than nothing. Being ghosted by people really sucks, and it's honestly disrespectful in my opinion. And it doesn't take that long to just say, hey, we have a lot of models applying right now. We have plenty of models. Thanks for your interest, but we aren't going to be able to work with you. And so with that, then I've moved into the fact that I have my event now called Muses of the West, which you're going to be a part of. And I'm super stoked to have you. And thanks for wanting to collaborate with me. And and that one is September 11th through 15th. I'm calling it the Great Basin Tour, and we're going to be along the border of Utah and Nevada and working around some really cool outdoor natural features. But part of why I created that is because I realized that honestly, I am a boss. I've always been a boss. Like 80% of my work life since I was like 12 years old. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur for a long time. And I do work well with other people, but I always am like trying to progress, trying to be on the next level. And so for me, it's good for me to be in charge and not just be hired on to someone's event, because I'm always going to want to improve it. And sometimes people don't want to hear my feedback. And so, it's like, yeah. And so that's part of my Rising Phoenix, is like that I have risen to the point where not only am I getting hired like crazy, I mean, my June New York trip, I am almost fully booked already, and like and I'm just getting to the point where I'm building enough of a reputation that I'm bringing people to me. I want people to come to me and not just have to tour all the time, because it's a lot of work. And I have a family, I mean, I have two sons. My oldest son's about to turn 9 when I get back from this tour, and my other son will be 6 in June. And I have a husband, and I like to grow a little bit of a veggie garden, and that's really hard. All of that falls on my husband. And shout out to him, he takes good care of our children and our home, and I come home and I hardly have to do the dishes, and he makes all the meals, and it's just like, but that's hard on our relationship. And and I'm just really fortunate I have him to support me. And I hear stories of other models that don't have supportive partners, or that they've had to choose between their partner and their career. And as I'm just that's like where I'm at, is I'm trying to meld my modeling life with my home in the Western US life, and really showcase who I am and show people what I can do. And that is that, when you hire me, I'm not just a model, I'm a scout built into one price, and within reason, of course. But like, I everywhere I travel, I'm always scouting locations to shoot. And so if it's something interesting and I have time, I'll pull over and I'll take some quick selfies, even if it's just on the timer with my cell phone, and I know places all over. And so I want to help like give an experience, and I want to elevate that experience, and I want to help to really provide something that's different or unique. I don't know, showcase who I really am, and stick out as the unique person I am, because, there's plenty of us white girls out there modeling, and they're potentially even brunettes, but it's like, what can you do that's different, that sets you apart? That's what makes or breaks the difference of when people will come to you, when they will trust you, when they'll hire you a lot, because you're not just going to do the thing on the box in the studio, but you're going to make it different.
Yeah,
So
totally.
that was kind of multiple things combined there. But, I'm not trying to sit in the sadness of what happened. I'm just, I've moved on from it, and it does occasionally come up. And I try not to talk about it that much, because I don't want it to get out there like, oh, she keeps talking about the drama that happened. Like, no, I'm just whatever. So it's just like, and I feel like, I've had that happen where I reach out to other moms or other models, be like, yeah, we should be friends. But just because you have one thing in common doesn't mean you're going to be friends with everybody. And I'm so, I just want to be friends with everybody, is kind of how I am. And I'm a little bit of a people pleaser at times. And I'm very sensitive. So I get very, easily saddened if people don't want to be my friend, I guess.
Yeah.
But I've learned through life that, yeah, I'm an oddball, and that I don't fit into any one category.
Yeah.
And that if there's any clickiness happening, I'm not going to be in that clique, because I'm not. Like, I'm, that's why I go by Muse, Jessa Ray Muse, because the word model for me is kind of triggering, actually. It, for me, is like runway and fashion in some ways. That's what it always reminded me of when people told me when I was a little girl I should model. I was like, I don't think I could do that. I'm not short. I'm not skinny. I mean, in terms of the way they are. And so for me, Muse is like inspiration of art, but also like, you are something that can be anything, any kind of inspiration. And so, I like that whole shape shifting chameleon type of phrase, but I've seen it used a lot. And so I stopped using it. But, I'm a muse. That's me.
I like that.
So,
And I do commend you for rising out of the ashes after feeling a rejection from the community, because I was very aware of all of this as it was happening, because I am part of said groups. I won't go too far into detail. I know that the group has been referenced in the past, and there are various groups, but there does seem to be a gatekeepingness about being a part of some of these groups that I find a bit distasteful. It is a lot of people who have been in the industry for a long time who seem to look down their nose at people who are newer. And I can see reasons why people might feel upset about somebody reaching out to a lot of different people that are all like full-time experienced traveling models and asking to pose together, because we all talk, and we all like get the messages. And we same thing when a particular photographer is sending a message to like a bunch of models. We're like, oh, did you get the email from so and so? Because we all talk. We're all in different groups, and we're all comparing notes. And when somebody's messaging a lot of people, like everybody behind the scenes kind of knows about it. But then to have the group mentality turned against you in a negative way, that is hard to overcome. So like, I do commend you for coming through it and finding a solution, which the way that I see it is that you wanted to collaborate with these people. They didn't want to make the time for you, so you came up with a monetary reason to incentivize them to be a part of your community, instead of you getting a favor from them to pose together or join their group. You started your own events where you're hiring people to come with you. So I think that's honestly the best possible scenario, that feeds your desire to work with these people, and it also feeds their desire, to go on a trip and model and get paid. That's what it's a win-win for everybody, in my opinion.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, you got to create the opportunity a lot of the time as models together. I mean, if you already have a good working relationship with somebody and you duo often, then you can just say, hey, so and so and I are going to be in town at the same time, put out a notice about it, hire us as a duo. But otherwise, it's like, yeah, is it actually gonna just come out of thin air? Not necessarily. So
Yeah.
I learned that, I learned a lot from it. I definitely have been humbled and learned where I was in the wrong and where there was potentially just catty misunderstanding and like, maybe even some elitism. So, there's like both sides to the wrongdoing there, and it just is what it is. But, I'm just happy that I like with modeling, it just is a constant process of
Yeah.
I do me and this is who I am. And if you don't like it, too bad. It's just the same with like a photographer. If they don't want to hire me because I don't have big boobs, then great. Don't hire me because I don't want you to Photoshop boobs onto me.
Yeah. But now that you're an event organizer, though, the tables might turn on you, and you might get people that are asking you to be a part of a group, and you don't have an extra tour to hire extra people on, and you're going to have to pick who's going to be on your next trips, and you can't pick everybody. So you're going to
Yeah.
have to be that one to make that decision too, which can be hard.
Yeah, and actually the way I've handled that because of my experience is every single person that has reached out to me, they can all testify to the fact that I have answered back to every single one of them. And I have said, if it's through the Muses of the West Instagram, then I'll say, hi, yeah, this is Jessa Ray Muse. I'm the one who runs this event. And, I already have all my models booked for 2023, but, I appreciate you reaching out and your interest. This is the type of models that I'm looking for. If you think you fit, then please send me your email. I'll send you a model questionnaire for a consideration list, is what I'll say.
Right on. That's good. I think that's a good response.
Yeah. Anyways, I think we could talk all day. That's
Yeah.
seems to be you and I's experience talking over the few years that we've been chatting now.
Totally. Is there anything else that you wanted to bring up on the podcast? Because we are getting close to the end.
I guess the last thing I would just say is, a little bit of a spotlight on Muses of the West is just that, I vet everybody that shows up that wants to come out. So I don't just let people sign up. It's like you fill out the form and you submit, and we'll see if I'm going to let you come, and it's because I want to create a safe experience with people who are truly like-minded and make sure that my models know that anybody I allowed to come on is somebody that is gonna be a good person, and even if they're a newbie in it, I'm still vetting them in that way, and or if they're a long-term experience. It doesn't matter if you've been doing this for 15 years. You could be a total jerk, and you could have done it for 1 year and be a total sweetheart, and your work just needs a little improvement, and so like I'm happy to invite amateur to professional photographers to want to join in these adventures. And I have 6 of them this year. I've sold out one of them. One of them is really close to selling out. Ours that we're on together is half sold out. And I would just really, I love what I'm curating, and it's just really starting to explode. And I'm practically brimming with excitement about it. So
That's awesome. Yeah. I'll definitely include a link to you and a link to your event page in the description of the podcast.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was really great having you. I'm really happy that we did an episode. And if there's nothing else to be said, I will say goodbye.
Yeah, I think that's about right. Bye-bye.